Hello everyone, this is Dilshani again from Literary Genius, and this is the second part of our lesson analyzing Better My Heart, written by John Donne. I will give you a quick overview of the previous discussion, and I will make this an opportunity to highlight certain aspects which I couldn't actually highlight in the previous video. So here we go. So this is the sonnet. The first thing we talked about was the genre. Genre is a word we use to refer to the type of writing. What is the type of writing we can see on the page? And with regard to this sonnet, we can call this sonnet a holy sonnet of the metaphysical tradition. A holy sonnet of the metaphysical tradition. We also talked about a special feature in metaphysical poetry and poets, and that is the use of unusual comparisons. If you could remember the example of a compass being compared to two lovers, the 2 feet, the 2 arrows. And these comparisons or metaphors are called metaphysical conceits. I could not highlight this phrase, the metaphysical conceits, in the previous video. Conceit simply means an extended metaphor. We also talked about Petrarchan sonnets and how it differs from Shakespearean sonnets. We use 2 things, basically the rhyme scheme and the division of lines. They follow different rhyme schemes and different ways of segmenting the lines. We also talked about iambic pentameter, the specific meter used in this sonnet. And now we can finally move on to that most awaited moment, the analysis, the most interesting part. I'm going to break this sonnet into several parts for the ease of explanation and for understanding. But remember, it is not divided into quatrains. I'm taking 4 lines at a time. It is the sonnet is originally divided into 2 parts, that is an octave and a sestet. And don't think they are divided into quatrains, because I'm taking 4 lines at a time. You could see I have mentioned the techniques used in this segment within brackets in red, and I have circled certain verbs, and I'll explain why in the course of the explanation. I'll start off from the opening line. I have highlighted there in red the word batter, a part of the word actually, the BAT part. And if you can remember the poem, I have highlighted, what I have highlighted is a sound unit or a syllable. And this should remind you that the sonnet is written according to the iambic pentameter, which has the order of an unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. However, this does not apply to this particular word batter. Why? Because it has the stressed syllable first, that is bat, and the unstressed syllable in the second place. So it deviates from the original iambic pentameter. If you could read the first bullet point, you could realize what this means to us. Batter My Heart starts with a strongly stressed first syllable, whereas more regular iambic pentameter would start unstressed. That is the reason, that is the common way, and that is how it is being deviated. This has started from a stressed one instead of unstressed one. It stands for the aggressive and unusual action that the speaker asks for. What is this unusual action the speaker is asking for? It is to batter, it is to attack his heart. Usually people wouldn't make such violent requests from God, would they? Normally we would ask help or guidance from God, but not particularly to attack. But this reveals how desperate the speaker is to admit God into his heart. But something is holding him back, and we will talk about it later. For the time being, we, as readers and as analysts, we know that the deviation from the regular iambic pentameter which is unusual, stands for the equally unusual and aggressive action of the speaker. Come again. The deviation from the regular iambic pentameter, which is unusual, stands for the equally unusual and aggressive action the speaker asks for. Okay, this is how the techniques mirror the main ideas. And next I want to focus on the phrase, the three-person God. This refers to God in three divine persons, the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit. This enhances the power and influence of God actually, without just saying batter my heart dear God or just God. When he says three-person God, it adds some more influence, it adds some more power into the image of God. So the power of the image of God with three divine persons therefore complements the word batter. Why? Because he's expecting a violent, powerful attack, batter, from a powerful God. Okay, I will now move on to the brackets, and in the brackets I have used the first technique, enjambment. Enjambment simply means the run-on line, which is a technique. This means that although the line breaks, the meaning will flow into the next line. So if you want to understand the full meaning, you have to read both lines. For example, you can look at the end of the first line. For you. Then you have to continue, as yet but not breathe, shine and seek to men. Then only you can get the full idea. Although the line stops at you, here the meaning continues. He's basically saying, batter my heart, three-person God, attack my heart, three-person God, because you have been only knocking, breathing, shining and seeking to mend. And what is the effect it creates on the sonnet? Focus on the second focus on the, this is about enjambment. Focus on the second bullet point. In reading, the delay of meaning creates a tension that is released when the word or phrase that completes the meaning is encountered in the next line. So what does this mean to us? There's a slight tension created between the two lines, the first and the second line, because there is a pause in between which obstructs you from arriving at the full meaning at once. You can't just come at the entire meaning at once. There's a pause. You have to go to the second line and you are eager to know, okay, what is happening, I want to know. There's such a tension, slight tension, very mild. You might miss it sometimes, but it's okay, we are here to point them out. And this tension in a way reflects the tension experienced by the speaker himself. Why is he tensed? Because he's desperate and tensed for not being able to show his faith in God to the fullest extent. And as you can see, I always try to find the effect created by these techniques, or how it develops the main idea or the theme, without just ticking them off, listing them off. And now, next I'd like to focus on elision. If you can see here, okay, this is the slide, correct slide, to make sure. Elision simply means you are omitting or deleting something. In the first line as well as in the third line, you could see certain letters are elided or deleted. What are these words? Personed. In the phrase three-person God, you can see E is missing in personed, which is marked by an apostrophe. And in the third line, the word overthrow, the V is missing, so it is pronounced as more like overthrow. These are two examples. This is called elision. The missing letter, yes, it is signified an apostrophe. Generally, elision is used to maintain the meter of the sonnet, the rhythm of the sonnet. For example, the word overthrow, that usually carries 3 syllables. Overthrow, 3 syllables. But an I am, we know, could only carry 2. Why an I am? Because it is written in iambic pentameter, remember? and I am could only carry 2 syllables, whereas overthrow carries 3. Even though the elision has reduced the number of syllables into 2, overthrow now has 2 syllables. Although it has done so, still the line carries an extra syllable. If you categorize this line into sets of iambs, you could see that there is an extra syllable. The same applies to the third line, for the first and the third line. So the first line and the third lines, actually they deviate from the regular iambic pentameter. And let me brief you. Okay, let's pull it together now. We were talking about elision, and why am I talking about meter now? Okay, we talked about elision, and elision is used to maintain the meter. But in the case of the first and the third lines, despite using elision, the meter deviates from the regular iambic meter. And what does this mean to us as analysts and readers? How are we to make meaning? How are we to make a connection between these features and the main ideas? That is what we are going to look at next. We already talked about the first line in this regard, right? The word batter and also the 3-person god, how they kind of deviate from the regular iambic meter. And actually the deviation there suggests the unusual request made by the speaker. Then what about the third line? If you read carefully, you could see that the speaker requests God to overthrow him, so he could rise and stand. Here, that I may rise and stand, overthrow me. This claim is paradoxical, don't you think? How could you expect someone to rise and stand when he is put out of power? Overthrow simply means put somebody out of his or her power. But as we are already familiar with Donne's way of thinking, we could assume that this paradox carries a deeper meaning. Okay, rising and standing in this line actually refers to the revival of his faith, not just any rising and standing. It refers to the revival of his faith, which could only be achieved, only take place if God could overpower all his doubts, all his weaknesses of things which keep him away from believing in God. So the paradox stands for his fervent desire to believe in God or have faith in God. There you go. We come to the end of our second part of the lesson. This might sound a bit too much to understand in one go, so I divided the lesson into smaller portions so it will be easier for you to understand. But don't give up with the first sign of difficulty. Keep listening and keep doing your own research. You can interpret these lines in many different ways as you please. Play around a little bit and learn. I'll meet you soon in our next video with the third part of our lesson. Until then, study these ideas well, and I wish you luck and thanks for watching.